All right, everybody, welcome.
Welcome back. We're here.
We are here,
All
going
right.
strong.
Going strong.
Thanks
strong.
to Aaron's persistence. I'm going to put that on record.
Thank you.
Aaron and our studio engineer, Levi,
Yes,
who
sir.
are showing up. And they say so much of life is about showing up.
Right?
And it's the thing that we can always do, regardless of the stories that we have in our head.
Absolutely. As long as we overcome how we feel, you know, because we don't always feel like showing up, right?
Just show up.
Just show up. Just do it.
It's like, you know, imagine the power of someone showing up and saying, you know, I had every excuse and desire of not being here. I can't do much, but I wanted to show up.
And then what comes from that?
Yeah.
What comes? It's almost like God gives you this gift of overcoming. I've spent my life kind of leading it with how I feel, and you know, it hasn't been till recently that I just like. It doesn't matter how I feel now. It doesn't matter how I feel, because when I feel good to do something, right? It's easy to do that. It's easy to do something you feel like doing. But what I'm realizing is there's no real super gift in that, right? The gift is when you don't feel like doing it and you still do what you're supposed to do. And it's one of the things you've taught me, and it's beautiful, and I appreciate that.
You know, there's a saying, take my advice because I'm not using it. Well, hopefully I'll be able to learn that myself.
Well, I appreciate it.
It's a great thing. So, what do we got? What's up? How you been?
Good.
What are you thinking?
Well,
I know you and I spoke about what we're going to talk about.
Right, but now we're like, what are we going to talk about? You know, I'm always thinking about the Torah.
Yes.
And I read the Parsha for this week, and Avraham is, he's becoming like this, almost like a role model for me. In a weird, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like in this weird way.
It could. It's. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I
please.
do mean to interrupt you. That's why I interrupted you.
Right.
What happens is, I know, especially growing up religious and studying this year after year, time and again, they lose that rock star status that they should naturally have. I mean, they, like a lot of these great rabbis. In fact, there's a story about the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rabbi, that I had heard the story from when I was a little kid, a little anecdote, and it never hit me until years ago, when I was older. They said that they used to pad his office. They used to have padding around his office because sometimes in great meditation and ecstasy, he would get so wrapped up and he would start rolling on the floor.
Wow.
And he would hurt himself.
Wow.
So they had to pad the office so he doesn't. And I was going to put a picture of the Alter Rabbi on a t-shirt with that story in mind, and on the bottom writing, "Who's your rock star?"
I love it. I love it.
Right? Like that's the greatest rock star
That is
story out there.
Awesome.
I mean, who does that?
Yeah.
Imagine they said, like Lahavdil, we said. Imagine they said about any of these other like great rock stars.
Right.
Oh, they had to pad the studio because this guy would get so enwrapped in his music that he would start rolling on the floor. Never happened.
Nope.
And that's just like a Hasidic anecdote that just, it slipped through the cracks. Like I heard that for years and I was like, oh, cool, wow. Like that's the detachment that can happen.
Oh, yeah.
But when you connect to these people as, wow, you know, on that level, Avraham, guy was a boss.
Right, exactly.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
He would be the guy you'd want to hang out with all the time.
Yes, those are my celebrities now.
Yeah.
Those are really they are. The Rabbi, those are my celebrities now.
Absolutely. I mean, they're truly worthy of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So Avraham, I was thinking earlier today about one of the stories in this week's parasha, and it has a story about how the city of, as it's pronounced, Sodom and Gomorrah, right, or Sodom and Amorah is the way we pronounce it. They were really wicked, and typically people attribute certain sins to them. Thus the word sodomy.
Oh. Okay.
But that's not from what I've seen, the traditional understanding in the Jewish text of what their sin was. The primary sin was that they were very cruel. They did not allow anybody to be hospitable to the passerbys, to the poor people, to the homelessness. They were very, very into standard of living type of thing for their city, and no one should at all give people food, money.
So like the opposite of us.
Of us.
Of Jews.
Way Jewish people.
The way
should
Jewish
be.
people
Yes.
are supposed to be.
Yes, yes, yes. And it says that God turns to Avraham and says, I'm going to get rid of the city. I mean, it got to a point where God's like, this is too much. And the story is that Avraham went and he started praying and he started asking God, come on, maybe you could find a reason to save them, don't destroy the city, etc., etc. And the Torah makes a point of detailing the entire negotiation between Avraham and God. And you could see how Avraham didn't leave the conversation. At the end, God left. Avraham had nothing left to say. He's like, what are you doing? Avraham's probably like, I'm just still showing up.
Right, right. Yeah.
I don't have any more arguments, but I don't know. I'm not leaving.
Right, right.
God left, and then the city got destroyed.
Right.
He couldn't save it.
Right.
What occurred to me was that earlier on in the parsha, we read about how Avraham was all about generosity and welcoming guests. To the point where 3 days after he was circumcised, God did not want him to have anyone over because that might burden him. He's going to run around, take care of them, and he's not going to take care of himself.
Right.
He had to heal.
Of course. He was 99 years old.
Right. Yes, he was 99 years old. So God said, I'm going to make it very hot. So nobody will go around traveling that day, and nobody will bother Avraham, which I thought in and of itself is like, imagine God kind of changes the ecosystem for a day for you.
Right, for you, right?
He's like, well, I figured you need your rest.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do this and that.
Come on.
I'd be like, God, I'm really getting the impression that you care about me.
Right.
So what happens is, Avraham, I hate to say this, it kind of backfired. Because he's like, what am I going to do if I'm not going to take care of people? Who am I?
Oh.
This was his core identity. So that's Avraham. And God had to send him angels looking like people, so like that he can right away get back into things. Okay?
His identity
is to help people, is giving people food and lodging and welcoming all people of all walks of life. And here you have a city that's identity, and its goal was to eradicate this type of behavior. They killed somebody because they fed the poor. That's what happened.
Wow.
And God's like, that's it.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
So you'd expect, God telling Avraham, that city that's just all against hospitality, I'm getting rid of it. I'm destroying the whole city. Avraham being all about it, he'd be like, yeah, they've been stressing me out.
Right.
Like, this has been and instead, his generosity extends to them now.
Wow. Rockstar.
And he's turning to God and saying anything he can to try to save the city. And then this is what occurred to me. So, but before we get to that, so just that contrast. What is that? Anything bring up for you? Or?
Well, I think it's just remarkable because most people, I think human nature is to jump on the bandwagon, especially when you're a certain way, especially if somebody, if something like God comes to you and says, these people are the opposite of who you are. When your friend comes up to you and you agree with your friend even, you know what I mean? If you're a certain way, you're going to jump on it. Yeah, of course. I feel the same way. God comes to you and says, hey, these people are jerks. You're not a jerk. You're going to jump on, right? Like you said.
Right.
He prayed for these people.
Yeah.
Rock star.
Because he's not a jerk.
Because he's not a jerk.
Yes.
Instead of jumping on the bandwagon with God, he argued with God.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me.
So what I loved about this is because it got me to another topic that's been on my mind for a while. And that is, if I were to ever give a parenting class, I would start by saying that, how I've attended a lot of parenting classes and things like that, and most of the time I walk away, or almost all the time, feeling much worse as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even though the lecturer, am I going to say it wasn't their intention? Okay, I'm going to go a little psychological here.
Okay.
My feeling is that a lot of people, let's say parenting experts, are busy trying to make right the errors of their parents on them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times what's happening is a guy's going around speaking about how people should properly parent. They're on a certain level speaking to their own parents.
Got it. So yeah, it's just
so now they're like fighting their parents, and they turn that into a workshop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Fighting shouldn't have anything to do with
Right.
it. Yeah.
Now here's the thing. We want as parents to have our children feel like they're winning, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want as parents to, like there's a saying from one of the great parenting experts. He says, you know, when the kids, when they amp it up, as parents, our job is to amp it down, right? So we're not just trying to give guidance, we're trying to be the guidance.
Okay.
So I know I'm kind of getting a little philosophical here,
Okay.
and but here's the bottom line. If the end result is parents are walking away feeling like they're not doing a good job, which is basically deep disappointment. One of the heaviest things that sit on children from their parents is the parental disappointment.
Right. In themselves.
So
yeah.
we have to move past words and think of state of beings. One of my favorite words lately is posture.
Posture.
Right?
I love that.
It's all about your posture.
Right.
You know, is your posture one of disappointment? Or is your posture one of empowerment? Are you at ease or are you stressed out? Right?
Right.
So I could talk all day. You know, somebody says, one of my teachers of Hasidic literature would say how you could talk all day about the value of silence.
Oh, right. I love that.
Right? You know,
Yeah.
you could talk all day about the value of ease and calm. And if you do it in a stressful way, you could talk all day about. So I would say the best gift you can give to any parent is start off by saying, hey, let's start with, you're doing the absolute best you can.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because then you gave them
Yes.
the posture to
Yes.
then turn to their kids and say, hey, you're doing the absolute best you can.
For sure. And
Right?
you're setting the right energy.
That's it. I mean, that's the foundation.
Yeah.
Right? You can't beat somebody into a state of empowerment.
No. You have to raise that.
You have to reveal it.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yes.
So how does this all connect with Avraham? Avraham wasn't into generosity as an ideal. It was who he was. It's all he knew how to do is be generous. So if you're into it as an ideal, that's a detached reality, right? Like it's an ideal.
Right.
And then if somebody is not for that and you are for that, you're going to fight them.
Right.
If you're into generosity as this is who I am, then regardless of what a person's for, I'm always going to be generous.
You be you.
I'm going to be me, right?
Yes.
I embody that.
Yeah.
And I think that's, with children, like so much time and effort is spent in explaining things to kids and be that thing. I mean, it's the same thing with other people. Like they say, be the change you want to see. Be the change you're talking about. Be it. And then automatically you'll be bringing that energy that's actually healing, that's actually empowering, that's actually uplifting.
Right. Don't talk about it. You know, I always say people that you hear talk about who they aren't that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People who talk about, you know, Einstein didn't talk about how smart he was.
Yes.
The Rabbi probably didn't talk about how spiritual he was.
No.
You know what I
He
mean?
never even
Probably never spoke about it.
No, he didn't.
Never.
He didn't.
Right? I doubt Moses ever talked about how humble he was.
That's true.
No.
Right.
Be.
So, you know, It's more than that. I feel that when we talk about these things, it creates an illusion. It actually distances us from that thing.
Yes.
Because now we depleted it, right? We kind of...
We're not it.
And we released whatever energy we'd have to become it by talking about
it. Right. The beauty in silence. You know, I don't have kids, but I always felt that a parent's primary responsibility was to make it so their kids don't need them anymore. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, right? Everything else is extra.
Yes.
But if you can make it so that when your kid goes out into the world, he doesn't need you anymore, as much of a natural fight as you might have with that, because it's your kid and you want to be needed by your kid because you know you raise this kid and there are all these different things. This is coming from my own childhood, right? Because my mom never wanted to let me go. But what I realized from that and growing up was that that's a parent's main responsibility. That's it.
Yes.
You make it so your kids don't need you anymore. When they go, you're good. You've done your job.
So yeah, there's an element to that.
Right.
And then there's something very natural and okay when even as an adult child, when you're an adult, you go back to one of your parents and kind of when it's all falling apart and they say it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay.
Right.
Of course,
and they can give that to you, and that responsibility never goes away.
Right, of course.
So
of course. The comfort responsibility.
So and it also helps with the confusion of it because we have so much data about how to be as a parent, right? Or, you know, do I come down hard? Do I come down soft in this? Do I put up a fight about this? Principle, not principle, right? And so long as we're running after the data, it'll be very difficult to figure out the perfect thing. And there is no absolute answer.
Right.
When you're not looking at data, when you're just becoming the person that you need to be for who you are, which is self-acceptance, you know, not beating yourself up, like all the things that a person finds themselves doing wrong in parenting is what they're doing wrong in themselves. And they're doing it because they're doing it wrong in themselves.
Right.
So if I'm feeling disappointed as a parent, and I finally muster up the courage to go to a workshop because of it, and then the workshop reinforces that mindset.
Right.
I'm worse off because of it.
Right. Backwards.
Right? We literally will end up with better tools on how to be disappointed.
Right. Horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
So the best workshop for parents is to help them. Even in relation, because the disappointment of like, I'm such a failure as a parent, right? Help them with that. Well, a lot of these guys will be like, no, I'm not going to tell them they're doing great. They're not doing great. I got to be honest with them. It's a no-win strategy.
Right. There's a way to direct. And I think going back to Avraham, he was the ultimate father, right? I mean, really, that's his name. His name.
Avraham, the father of the multitudes of nations.
Right. He was the father, talking about parents.
Right.
And very successful one when you look at his kids, right? And didn't have his kids until he was older. Right. Wasn't that right?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So probably one of the most successful dads ever. Had to be.
We don't read a lot about Avram's parenting things. You know, Yishmael was driven out of his house at one point. Later on, and then Yitzchak. I'll conclude with this. At the end of this week's parsha, we read about the binding of Yitzchak. How Avraham is told by God, go out there and sacrifice your only son that you love.
Right.
And there's so much that there is to discuss, and there's so much left unanswered about that story. Right?
Oh, okay.
But Rabbi Steinsaltz, one of my favorite rabbis, he wrote up a whole article one time from the perspective of Avram the parent and Yitzchak the son in that moment. Right? We typically think of Avram as the servant of God doing God's work.
Right.
But Yitzchak is looking up at his dad. And he's like, he's dad.
Right.
And Avram is like, he woke up early and he's going. He's not detached.
Right.
They're talking.
Right.
but he's very focused.
Right.
And how that resonates with Yitzchak, like, I know my father loves me more than anything.
Right.
And he's so clear and convicted, right, in what he's doing. And it was just this whole amazing description that I never, like, how does that play out? And, that's something to read about in terms of Avram being the dad. But,
right.
And that leads off to a whole new conversation with Avram's sense of purpose, etc., and father in general and their sense of purpose, right? The child looks at a father, the father needs to look beyond. But anyway,
right.
Yeah. Where we holding on time? Just about good. All right. Anyway, thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Sounds good. We'll be here next week, right?
God willing.
Absolutely.
And
comment. Let us know what you think.
Yes. All the best.
Thank you.
Cool. What was that? 20.